Hello, my name is Jason Clark, and this is episode number 13 of the Snakes Are Us TV podcast. Glad to be back, and tonight we were talking about media. Media. I got the idea about talking about media about a news story that my mom sent me last week, and as I read it, it just made me mad. I was like, this is the stupidest article written. And I just realized I don't even have the article in here. So I need to look this up because I want to go over this. So my name is Jason Clark. I'm with Southeastern Reptile Rescue. If you're listening to this on your podcast where you listen to Spotify, iHeartRadio, Apple, we record this live every Thursday night at 8 o'clock Eastern time. So if you want to join us as we record it live, you can join in on the live chat, which I'm trying to bring up right now. So we'll see if anybody is in here with us. If I can go to find my own YouTube channel here somewhere. So anyway, I actually called my mom and I said, hey, listen, can you do me a favor? I'm going to talk about like media and news stories that are just ridiculous. And one thing I always think about is I've been interviewed a lot over the years, and over the years, when people write stories about me and they quote me and stuff, I'm like, man, I hope nobody reads this because that's not what I said. That is not what I said. And so what it did, it made me kind of be a little bit more lenient when I read articles and some person said something crazy. I'm like, well, it says they said this and they're quoting them, but there's a pretty good chance this person never even said that, okay? And so that became pretty clear to me when I started getting interviewed for articles and, now I'm just talking about tonight, I'm just talking about print articles, okay? And I'm not even talking about, media like as in live TV news and things like that. I can do a whole other podcast on that, but this is just putting my words in print and not even putting them in print, putting words in print that are not my words and saying they're my words. So that can happen too. But I got some funny ones I think we're going to go over tonight. I'm going to see if I can pull this one up right here because this one just about made me mad. Just reading this thing, it was just so ridiculous. But I want to read that one to you in just a second. Now, this first one talks about alligators. Okay. And, I am surprised sometimes when I am doing shows and I'm teaching about snakes and alligators and things like that, about how many people here, because I live in Georgia, how many people here in Georgia don't realize that alligators live in Georgia. And so when they see my truck, which says State Alligator Trapper, or my van that's got, State Alligator Trapper on it, and I'm at a gas station somewhere, people ask me, so you're from Florida? I'm like, no, I live here in Georgia. Oh, South Georgia. No, I live in Central Georgia. Like, well, you catch alligators? I'm like, yeah, we get calls on quite a few alligators, several a year. Now, as you go further in South Georgia, they get maybe several a month because there's a lot more gators in South Georgia. But, you don't have to go really far into South Georgia to be in the natural range of the American alligator. If you look at the state of Georgia and you draw a line from Augusta to Macon to Columbus, that makes up what we call the fall line in Georgia. And it's thought that a long time ago, everything there and south of that was underwater because you can go to the fall line in Georgia and you can find fossilized shark teeth, which I found. I mean, there's some cool stuff there. And but that's where alligators come up to the fall line, to that line. So once you get to Macon, Georgia, which is central Georgia, you're in the natural range of the American alligator. Now, alligators have never been told, this is where you stop. Okay, you stop here. Gators on this, so they come north of that, a little bit anyway. Not too far north, but they can be found quite a ways north of the fall line. But typically, the fall line in the south is where you find gators. Now, the reason I want to read this story is because I have a little bit of a backstory to go along with this that personally involves me. Now, this is a news story involving Muskogee County, Georgia. Muskogee County is Columbus, Georgia. And this is where the Chattahoochee River runs through and divides Georgia and Alabama. Okay, so there's Phoenix City, Alabama, Chattahoochee River, and then Columbus, Georgia. And Columbus, Georgia is a college town, really cool place to visit, lots of great restaurants and events and activities and concerts. And so they were trying to figure out a way to bring even more people to Columbus. So several years ago, I don't know what they did. They did some reconfiguring to the river, and they made the river prime for whitewater rafting. And they started advertising it as a whitewater rafting place, and it really took off, and it's still going strong. But here's the article. I'm going to read this article to you and point out how ridiculous it is. Then I'm going to tell you what happened with me in Columbus as far as alligators go. Okay. Before we do that, if you're watching live on YouTube, or if you're not watching live on YouTube and you want to, come, because we have a live chat. And so you can be in here live and talk to everybody else. So who we got in live chat real quick? We've got Chocolate Cookies is here every week. Thank you very much. Chocolate Cookies is my mom, believe it or not. And I asked her, why are you called Chocolate Cookies? She said, I don't know how to work my phone, and your daughter changed it to Chocolate Cookies. So anyway, that's my mom. But, Painted Rocks is here. And now Painted Rocks says, wow, episode number 13, way to go, Jason. Now, I got to thinking about episode 13, which is this. And I was thinking, anybody that's watching episode 13 is not watching episode or listening to episode number 13. Nobody is here doing this as your first time. Now, you could possibly have clicked on and watching this live video as your first time, but you're not going to be on Spotify or Apple Play or anything else and listen to episode 13 as your first podcast of my podcast. Because, if you go on there and if I'm only up to episode 13, or even if I'm at episode 20, you're not going to say, okay, let's start with episode number 13. Okay. You're going to start somewhere else and end up on 13. Now, I'm not superstitious. Okay. Like Michael Scott says, I'm a little stitious. No, I'm not superstitious, but some people, I was thinking, maybe some people who are superstitious, who believe in that crap, may be a little leery of watching episode 13. So I don't believe in any of this stuff, but I was like, I'm going to do something for these weirdos who are scared of the number 13. So I called my daughter and I said, hey, Audrey, you've got some good luck charms. Can you bring me a horseshoe out of your bedroom? And this is what she brought me. I asked for a horseshoe, and because of their good luck, and she brought me 8 1/4 horseshoes. Someone has welded these into a sculpture of a pumpkin. So is a horseshoe lucky after it's been welded? I hope so, because if it is, we got 8 1/4 worth luck here from our horseshoe pumpkin on episode number 13. And then I was thinking, okay, what other thing can I have that would be lucky? And I was like, I don't want to go out here. It's cold today. I don't want to be looking for 4-leaf clovers all evening. And I was like, I know what I'll get. I know a lucky rabbit's foot. The little keychains you have, a lucky's rabbit's foot. And so I said, that would be perfect. Let me get this out here down. I was like, that would be perfect to have a lucky rabbit's foot for episode number 13. The problem with that is I could not find one foot. So this one's got all 4 of its feet. So are they lucky when they're still attached to the rabbit? I don't know. If we need to detach them, we can do that. Okay. I'm kidding. We're not going to do that yet. So anyway, we got 4 rabbit's feet in the studio. We have 8 1/4 horseshoes that's welded together to make a pumpkin sculpture. So I think that may be enough luck for those who believe in it. I don't, to counteract this being episode number 13. Anyway, those are for the weirdos who are superstitious. Now, put the rabbit back up. And we should have brought the retic in here tonight, the one that bit me that episode. He'd love that rabbit. Don't be getting mad at me for that, okay? Snakes got to eat too. No, this is not one of the rabbits I feed my snakes. My daughter actually raises rabbits as pets, and I've offered to buy them for her. She will not let me. All I get to buy is all the hundreds of dollars of rabbit feed that they eat. She does let me buy that, but she won't ever sell me one of her rabbits. So who else we got? We got Candy's Critters is in here tonight. Welcome back. We got Chris Taylor is usually always here. Georgia Outlaw is Keith, and his son Cody was just here in the studio and just left. And let's see who else we got here. That's it. So, no, we got, there's a whole lot more people down here in the bottom of the chat. So, Lisa Easter, you've been looking forward to this all day. Well, good. I'm glad to hear that somebody's looking forward to this. Cheesy Cheetah, you made it. Connor is here. David, Leos. Tell me, guys, where some of y'all are from. Jasper Fiend is here. Diana. Were those changes to the river for whitewater rafting related to the Olympics? I think they were. I think that's what they were. I know they had changes to the river. I want to say it was the Cartacay River in North Georgia. They did a lot of changes for that, for like whitewater rafting in North Georgia. I can't remember if that's why they did this in Columbus. It seems like the change in Columbus was well after the Olympics, but I don't know that for sure. So let's see here. Pender Sweet says, tiny stitches, tiny bit of superstitions. Okay. Dennis Atkins is here. Candy's Critters is here. And Annette Stiles is back. There's a lot of Dennis Atkins, Trinity Murray. I'm a hoggy breeder in Oregon. For those of you who have no idea what she's talking about, she does not breed hogs. She breeds hognose snakes, which is an awesome snake. If you want a pet snake, and hognose are highly recommended. Those guys are so cool. They don't get big, and they hardly ever bite. Really, really great snake. So welcome. So David Leos, no gators here. Where are you at, David? Candy Critters is from Austin, Texas. Okay, well, thank you guys for joining us. So back to the story. So here, I'm just going to read this off to you, some of it. So they go to a local bait shop, this reporter, and is interviewing people at this bait shop. I've been to this particular bait shop before, and this bait shop is situated right along the banks of the Chattahoochee River. And basically, they're just interviewing them in this story, and he's talking about what they have for sale there in the bait shop and things like this. And, I got to read more. Is he going to make me pay to read more? Hope not. So let's see here. Okay. So he's talking about all the stories, and he says some of the stories that are told here about this river, this section of river, are honest to goodness nightmares. And then referring to alligators, he says, the guy at the bait shop, they're dangerous creatures. They will kill you. I mean, yet people have been killed by gators. It's not extremely common, but the people who have been killed by them probably aren't gator fans anymore, I'm sure. So down at this is the reporter talking now. He says, down at the dock, deputies. So deputies, what do you mean? He doesn't mean game wardens. Game wardens who deal with wildlife and deal with alligators as part of their job. He's talking about the local county sheriff's deputies are on the case aboard the sheriff's patrol boat, and one of the investigators is at the helm, and the other investigator is riding shotgun, he says. And these men are trying to track down the growing number of the largest apex predator ever to haunt the waterway. I mean, try to make it sound as dramatic as you can. They're looking for alligators that naturally live in Columbus and the river is what they're doing. But he says they're tracking down the largest apex predator to ever haunt the waterway, the American alligator. I mean, that's serious. That's the sentence I'm reading right now. And so then one of the investigators says, yeah, I've seen an increase in the alligator population on the Chattahoochee River in just the 2 years that I've been here. The first one was, at first there were 2 or 3 alligators we saw. Now it's like 10 or 12, maybe 15 alligators here. And they say these great big reptiles are working their way up north. Well, where are they coming from? So they go on to say Middle Georgia is 150 miles from the Florida line. There are more alligators coming every year. This is so stupid. The gators are not crawling up here from Florida. I'm sure there's some that cross the line, and there's just as many that cross the line and go to Florida, back and forth. There are more alligators coming every year, and they must like it because they're staying here in Georgia and growing larger and larger. This is the stupidest story about alligators I've ever read. So they're making it sound like that alligators all of a sudden are now swimming from Florida up the rivers and coming into Georgia and deciding, I kind of like it here in South Georgia. We're going to hang out. That's what they're making it sound like. Then they ask him, so what's the biggest one you ever saw out here? The reporter asked the sheriff's deputy. He said, probably 14 foot, right off the bow of the boat. Too close for comfort. Close enough. Now so this part is interesting. He says some wildlife biologists believe that people brought some of these alligators to Middle Georgia when the babies outgrew their terrariums. The one thing that I find interesting is, in this article, at least I haven't seen it anywhere, is them mention who this wildlife biologist is that thinks the gators in central Georgia were released because they outgrew the aquariums people were keeping them in. That's what sounds like he's suggesting in this article. The State Department of Natural Resources, who actually knows what they're talking about and oversees this, which they didn't talk to, I don't think, in this article, says the first gators were spotted in the 1980s. And these days and nights, many environmentalists, who are not named, insist climate change has led to some of the reptiles to stray out of the Sunshine State into similar conditions. This is so stupid. I can hardly even read it on air. So they're saying that these reptiles are leaving the Sunshine State and moving to similar conditions in the Peach State. I'm sure there's been an alligator or a few hundred swim from Florida to Georgia. There's been a few hundred swim from Georgia to Florida and to Alabama and vice versa. Just like there's deer walking to Florida and deer walking to Georgia. Animals are crossing state lines all the time. DNR believes there's now as many as 250,000 alligators living in Georgia. Now, the reason we have 250,000 alligators in Georgia now is because back in the 70s, gators became protected. Before that, you could eat alligators. You can eat them now, but you have to kill them legally. But you could go out and kill as many as you want, anytime you wanted, any time of the year, any way you wanted. And you could keep them as pets. There was no protections on them at all. And then they stepped in and protected the gators. And because of that, they've made a comeback. So the gators that are now living in Georgia are gators that are supposed to be living in Georgia. They're not just swimming up here from Florida. And then they go on to say, yeah, I think once they get here, they don't really migrate back down to Florida. And then he says the gators in the Chattahoochee are fattening up on a steady diet of deer and beaver. And then one of the guys says, yeah, all the time we find animals out here just bit into. I don't know what's biting them into, but I guarantee you it's not one of these alligators. No. This is just the most contrived, ridiculous article ever. And I'm not going to tell you which news organization it is out of Atlanta, WSB Channel 2, but this is stupid. This is really dumb. Then they said, but these could become a serious safety issue. When we see an increase in the alligator population, we have to say something about it. And then they go on talking about the 14-foot alligators that live there. And then they said, they end the article by saying this: be careful. The alligators are not going anywhere. You are. Oh my God, this is so dumb. This is so stupid. Anyway, this article just makes me angry because it's just fear-mongering, trying to get people terrified and thinking that alligators are moving into Georgia and that they haven't been here for a very long time. They've been here for a very long time. Now, here's my part in that story. Many years ago, I had somebody with the city of Columbus, a high-ranking official of the city of Columbus, call me and say, hey, Jason, can we have a meeting with you in Columbus to discuss American alligators situation that we have? I said, of course. So I said, where's your office? He said, I don't want you to meet me in the office. And he tells me where to meet him along the banks of the Chattahoochee River in Columbus, Georgia. And this is not too long after they've redone the river and they've started really advertising and pushing hard for whitewater rafting to come. People come here and go rafting. And so they meet me at the river, and then they show me at a very popular place in downtown city limits of Columbus where they've taken photos, and they have the photos of some alligators laying right here on the bank. And these gators are, look to be 8 feet plus, 8 or 9 feet, something like that. And in the photo, there's 2 alligators. And they said, so what can we do to have you come out here and catch those alligators and get them out of here? Because we got rafters that come down here. We can't have them seeing these gators. So many people not want to raft. And I said, well, in order for us to remove a gator, I'm a nuisance alligator agent for the state. In order for me to remove a gator, it has to be deemed a nuisance gator. I can't just catch a gator you don't like and remove him. It has to be a nuisance gator. And this is in a natural waterway, and this is where they're supposed to be. Now, if the gator does something where he's approaching people or he's doing something he shouldn't be doing, he's showing aggression, then we can get him. But these gators are not doing that. So they don't meet the criteria that we would consider it to be a nuisance alligator. So we can't remove them. They're supposed to be here. And those are just the 2 you got pictures of. I guarantee there's a lot more in here than those 2. And even if we remove those 2 and there's none here, more are going to move in because they'll just occupy this territory because there's no big bull gators to claim it. Another big bull male gator will claim this area. So they're supposed to be here. Now, if it gets out of the river and gets in this hotel swimming pool, that's a nuisance gator. I'll come get him. Or even if he gets in your pond, it's a natural pond, but it's a 1 acre pond in your backyard, I'll get him. That's a nuisance gator. But this is the Chattahoochee River. And you're within the range of where they're supposed to live, so we got to leave them here. I said, here's what my suggestion would be. My suggestion would be to educate the public and maybe put up a bunch of signs out here warning the public, letting them know that this area is a natural home to American alligators, that there's a lot of them here and they're supposed to be here. And he said, well, there's no way we're doing that. That's going to make people not want to come here and raft. That was the end of the conversation. That's as far as I know it ever went. If they contacted somebody else, I don't know, but they never contacted me again. So for that, anyway, so that kind of stuff just kind of aggravates me with that. And I haven't even gone through all of these newspapers yet, but there's a bunch of them, and these are all ones that my mom keeps in some big box, and because I don't know what I've done with all these things, but some of these are before I had a beard and back when I had hair. So I'm not going to show you all these. But there's a couple in here that I do want to go over that I think is pretty funny. I remember some of the news stories that we get that come in. And some of these things, if people would just really read and pay attention to what they're reading, they wouldn't even bother me with some of these things. But one news story I kept getting a lot this year was on social media, and people were sending it to me like crazy. Oh my gosh, did you see this? Did you hear about this? Did they call you to go help with this situation? And the situation was an 18-wheeler had wrecked on the interstate. And I don't remember the exact story, but a couple dozen king cobras escaped that were being transported to a venom lab where they milk them for venom. And when you clicked on the source of the article, you went to their website, and the page pops up. It says on there, this is a satire page. It's all fake. We just write funny stories, and you can share them, and we laugh at them. And every week they would send me one of these stories, and each story took place in a different state. But nobody would click on it to read that this is satire and know there's not an 18-wheeler full of cobras loose on the interstate somewhere. Some of these I don't even know what some of these are probably pretty crazy stories. But I'm not going to read through all these things. But there is a couple in here I do want to show you for sure. But I remember one story that we got, and I don't have the newspaper article of this particular one. I don't think, but I do remember the story, which is definitely worth telling. I got a phone call one day, and they just said, "Hey, we need," and this was the state of Georgia state agency, and they said, "Hey, we think we know what this is, but can you just confirm the identification of this animal?" And I said, "Sure." So they sent me a photo of a snake. I said, "Oh yeah, I definitely know what that is. I don't have to. I can just glance at that and know exactly what it is." Actually, I brought one to show you, and I wasn't going to bring a snake, but Annie specifically requested I bring one, and she said, "If you bring one, make sure it's a venomous snake." So this, I'm going to back up a little bit with this guy. I'm not going to get really close with him. I'm not going to keep him out long either. So I want you to see him. He doesn't really ride a hook very well, but I don't know if you guys can see this. Yeah, I know, buddy. You better stay way over there. And I'm just going to get you up where they can see you just a little bit. So this fella right here, some of you know exactly what this is. If you know what this is, put it in the chat. This is a very young, a very adorable, a very deadly Gaboon viper. This is a West African Gaboon viper, and they get much, 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 much bigger than this. And these snakes are known to have the largest fangs of any snake in the world as adults, of course. An adult snake of a Gaboon can have fangs up to 2 inches long, and they have a massive venom yield. So they inject with venom that way more venom than they need to kill you with. So not a snake you want to get bit by. Fortunately, they're pretty laid-back snakes. They can strike extremely fast, but they're just laid back. They don't really do much. But that can be the problem with these snakes, is because you can easily let your guard down with this thing. And to me, this is the fastest striking snake I have ever seen. Incredibly fast striking snake. But these are native to Africa. Now, so you shouldn't see one of these crawling around here in Georgia, which is what the news article said. So anyway, I get a photo sent to me, and I identify the snake in the photo as a Gaboon viper. And in the photo, you can clearly see it's not in a snake enclosure. It's not in an aquarium. The Gaboon viper in the picture that's sent to me is, it's like crawling across some gravel. Like you can tell it's outside on the ground crawling across some gravel. And it was much bigger than this. It looked in the picture to be maybe 3 feet long, maybe 3.5 feet long, a decent sized Gaboon. And so they're like, "You sure?" I said, "Yeah, I'm positive that's a Gaboon viper." So they decided to send an investigator to the lady's house who took the photo. And they said, "Can you go meet us there at the lady's house?" I said, "Sure, but it's a long way away. I'm a couple hours from it. You're going to get there before I will." They said, "That's fine. Just go ahead and head down this way." And so I started heading down to the city of where this was in Georgia to go. And I'm thinking I'm about to have to go snake hunting, to go down here in central Georgia out in the woods looking for a Gaboon viper. That's what I'm getting ready to go do. And when they get there, they meet with the lady, and she takes them and shows them where she took the photo. Now, this lady was not expecting law enforcement to show up at her house and say, "Hey, you sent this photo over social media to be identified. Where did you take the photo?" And she shows them where she took the photo, okay? And the weird thing was, the photo did not match the ground or anywhere near the area where she says the photo was taken. It just didn't line up. Like the snake was on like some small pieces of gravel, and where she showed them the photo was taken did not match the area at all. It just didn't even look like the same place. And so they even took her phone in with her permission, and they analyzed her phone, analyzed the photo. I mean, they really did some really cool investigation stuff here. But then they came back and said, "Jason, you don't have to come. We don't think there's a Gaboon viper has ever been here." And I mean, I don't know if the lady's lying, but if she took the photo, it definitely wasn't anywhere near where she's showing us she took the photo. It wasn't here. And we don't know why she would make this up. I mean, if she did make it up and she got the photo from somewhere, maybe she's afraid she's going to get in trouble if she says, oh yeah, I just posted the picture as a joke. And maybe she doesn't want to admit that. It's because she thinks she's going to get in trouble. But she's telling us that no, she saw that snake. She took a photo of it right here, but it doesn't match. So we can't prove, you can't prove a negative. You can't prove the snake's not there, okay? And so they said, out of an abundance of caution, even though we truly do not believe there's a Gaboon viper crawling around this central Georgia town, we're going to have to put out a public notice about it, even though we don't believe there's one here. And I said, okay. So anyway, they put out a public notice, and then my phone starts going crazy. Everybody calling, oh my gosh, it's a Gaboon viper. Did you hear about the Gaboon viper? It's down there. Are you going to go hunt the Gaboon viper? And so I'm trying to tell people, well, we don't think there's a Gaboon there. Well, that's what the news says. And you know how the news, they'll just kind of run with stuff and just make it, insane sometimes. And so I'm trying to explain to people there's a very slight chance there's a Gaboon viper. Actually, there's probably not a Gaboon viper there. And it's just a story. They have to release the information. But anyway, so it just kind of goes to show you that even sometimes when things appear in the news, there may not even be anything to it. But I understand why they decided to put the information out that there could be a Gaboon viper there, because God forbid, if the lady was telling the truth, which we had a lot of reasons to believe that she was not, we certainly didn't want anybody just finding some weird snake and not knowing about it and then picking it up. And this is not one you'd ever want to get bit by, not a Gaboon viper. Anyway, these guys are illegal to own here in Georgia without proper permits. And so we have the proper licenses to own this, but individuals can't own this snake. So that was the other thing is this is not someone's pet snake. And if it is, we're not supposed to have the snake. So I'm going to put this Gaboon back into its enclosure. And some of you are like, thank God, put him in his enclosure, okay? Others are like, no, keep him out. He's so pretty. This is often regarded as one of the most beautiful snakes in the world. Its pattern is just simply stunning on this snake. Amazing, amazing snakes, Gaboon vipers are. Now, this is a small one, so he's actually doing pretty well on this hook. But when this one becomes an adult, you can't hold him on a snake hook like that at all. So let me lock him up. Make sure he is secure. All right, so you can breathe now. The Gaboon viper is put away, okay? So just goes to show that sometimes you get really weird stuff. Now, here's what I'm going to try to do. I don't know if this is going to work. I've been struggling every night when I start this podcast, especially with the live feed. I struggle trying to figure out how to turn it on and go live, because I'm not doing this from my cell phone. From a laptop computer, you have to use third-party software, and I'm always figuring out, how do I get this thing started, which is just kind of crazy. But I want to try to show you this. I don't know if it's going to pull up, but let me get back over here, and I want to see if I can show you this article and see if this pops up here. Now, if you can't see this article, which I don't know if it's up there. There we go. Okay, so you got the article. All right, so coils for alarm is what this says. Coils for alarm. This is actually pretty darn funny. So this newspaper article was sent to me, and I'm not going to read the whole thing. You got it up there on the screen, but it basically says 12-foot python shows up on family's front porch. Now, this is also in central Georgia, and it has a photo. If you're not watching this online, if you're listening to this podcast, there's a photo of a man with a long pole with a huge snake on the end of it. And the snake is kind of draped over, doubled around, and it looks like it's twice the length of the 6-foot tall man, which means it's a 12-foot snake. And if it's a 12-foot snake, well, it has to be a python. And it showed up on this family's porch, and the article goes on to talk about pythons in the Everglades and how they might be moving to Georgia, probably crawling up over the alligators, or they're coming up to Columbus to swim in the rivers, and they like it here and all this stuff. And they're talking about this. Then it goes on to say that the guy in the photo that caught the snake turned it loose next to his house and let it crawl off. And that put citizens into an uproar. Now, this article was sent to me, and I just thought it was the absolute most ridiculous thing I've ever seen, because I know you can't see the photo, but if you can see the photo, those of you who are watching on YouTube, if you notice the snake and the part of the pole the snake is on, the snake is roughly the same diameter as the pole that it's holding onto. Then if you follow the pole down to where the man's holding the pole, you see how skinny the pole is in his hand. Down there, that pole is roughly the same diameter as the man's thumb. So it would be safe to say this pole does not change in circumference as you go to the end of it. It's the same size on one end as it is the other end. So this snake is the same diameter as your thumb. Okay? That's how big around this little snake is. Now, there's the article. Goes on to talk about the details of this. And I'm gonna tell you, I was incredibly upset to see this because it just makes me so angry when news organizations put out information that's going to make my job harder, because this is going to take 200 phone calls that I'm going to have to take of, hey, did you hear about the snake? Are you going to come here and catch it? When you catch it, can I adopt it? Because I want a 12-foot python, and because that's what they're thinking is a 12-foot python. And so what I did is I drove to the office of that news organization, and I carried the newspaper inside, and I demanded to see who wrote this article. And I ended up meeting with the person who wrote the article, and I was nice. I was very nice. I wasn't mean, but I was just like, this is a ridiculous article. This is crazy. And I just kind of educated them on the information. And they were very nice about it, and they did a retraction, and they put this article up. Now, I understand a lot of people listen to this not on YouTube, so you can't see this, but this is worth going to read. And take your time to read it, because when you get to the part about the tarantula, what in the crap is a tarantula? Tranchila. Tarantula. You know what a tarantula is? A tarantula is what it sounds like when you sound out tarantula, and you don't know how to spell tarantula, so it sounds like tarantula. Okay? So they mentioned tarantulas in this article. Okay? And there's so many misspellings and just misinformation in this. It's just ridiculous. And so I ended up posting the original article as well as the retraction on our social media. And people were just laughing at it, thinking, why would they write this? I mean, nobody had proofread this before they sent it out. And so the editor of it called and was threatening to sue me if I didn't take it down. I'm like, what are you talking about? I mean, anyway, it was so ridiculous. But anyway, I guess that was the first time the editor read it before isn't that what the editor is supposed to do, is read this stuff before they put it out? I'm not going to go into this story. This is another one right here. This was a story several years ago of an albino timber rattlesnake that was caught in the wild, and ended up being one of several albino timber rattlesnakes that we ended up getting in. But this first one that we got in, this was 2006, and that actually made national news because it was such a rare snake at the time. Now, since then, we've ended up with several albino timber rattlesnakes. I actually got a new one this year, 2024. We got another one that came in. But there's still one more article that I really want to get to here in a minute, which is pretty cool. And I don't even know what I was in this article, but so this, I don't even know when I show you this picture. This is way before. This is not only before I could grow a beard, before I had a beard. This is before I could even grow a beard. Okay, and this is. See, what year was this newspaper? What year was I can't read anything without my glasses, and I ain't putting glasses on the podcast. Okay, I don't even have them in here. Anyway, this is I don't know. This is me back before I could grow a beard. Yes, there was one time in my life when I actually had hair, and that is a green iguana that is on my shoulder there. So, and apparently I was at a school doing a petting zoo, and I didn't just have reptiles in. I also had some mammals. Oh, look at there. My little sister. Now, this was back when my sister was sweet. She's not sweet anymore. But I'm also in this picture down here. So right there is my sister and some unknown person holding, what is that? Is that cats? Rabbits? I think it's cats. I don't know why they got cats. And then I'm down here with Bandit. That was one of my pigs. Bandit. He was a pretty good pig. Anyway, so I started out doing these petting zoos and didn't just use reptiles. We used all kind of stuff, but I ended up switching over to just snakes and alligators and things. Anyway, this other news article that is probably the funniest title that I've ever had written about me that I want to get to in a minute. Let me get back over the chat. Have you guys ever seen I'm not going to ask if you've ever seen an outrageous news article because we'll be here all night talking about that. Have you ever seen an outrageous news article involving reptiles? Have you ever seen that? And if you have, what was it? Because I'm sure there's a lot of them that I don't see. But and as soon as I stop this podcast, I'm going to remember tons of them that were just absolutely ridiculous. This right here brings back memories. And some of these are not good memories. I mean, some of them are. But so this was many years ago when I had a TV series on Animal Planet. And for a while I had a TV series on Animal Planet. And the weird thing about that, man, talking about being in the media, we had so many articles being written about me and my family and the work that we do. And most of it was all really, really good. Actually, I think all the articles I read then were really, really good. But the really, really bad part of all that publicity that we got from the TV show was the haters that you're going to get. And, I had not been exposed to that much publicity until I had my own TV show at that point. And, some of that was hard to figure out how to take that because it seemed to me that the people, especially online, would go online in these reptile chat rooms and reptile forums and just other places that were reviewing our show and just all over the internet. And they would talk about all kind of stuff about us and me and, my voice, I'm too country, I'm a hick and this, I don't know how to do. Just all kind of horrible, horrible comments. And then I got to realize something as I started looking. I don't even know what this one is. I got to look at something was that, oh yeah, there I am. I'm in this I'm riding. So I remember this. I am on the back of a trailer in a Christmas parade holding a 9-foot alligator in that picture right there. Yeah, I remember that. Okay. Anyway, with all the hate that we were getting from people, what I realized is that there were, for every one person that seemed to hate me or hate what I was doing, there was 1,000 that loved me and what I was doing. And so it took a while to kind of figure that out. And so I started kind of realizing, for every one of these haters that I've got, there's a whole lot more that are not haters that are liking what we're doing. And even here on YouTube, we'll get some hateful comments every now and then about, how we don't know what we're doing and just crazy stuff. And my response is, yes, thank you. As long as you're watching, just keep watching the videos. Give me views. The more views we get, keep watching. You hate all you want. Keep watching and keep commenting because the more comments we get, the more the algorithm pushes that out to more people. So even if you don't have a good comment it on there and that'll push it out to more people. So this is, I don't even remember this one. This is talking about the TV show coming up that we did, holding the copperhead in that picture. This is the article right here. This is the one I want to tell you guys about. That's pretty cool. Before we do this last one, this is by far the funniest and it's kind of a dig at me. This is not a flattering headline, okay? I don't think. It's kind of like a dig, like a cut at me. But it was such a good headline. I was like, I would have put the same thing. And it's still to this day, it's my favorite headline that's ever been written about me. Okay, let's go back to the chat real quick before we go into that one. So we got Janet Jones is from Nashville, and Cheesy Cheetah is from Wisconsin. You know, I've done snake shows in Wisconsin. A few times I've been to Wisconsin, done snake shows in Wisconsin Dells at the, what is that big resort they have in Wisconsin Dells? Really a big, nice resort. I don't know, some kind of African name of some resort. I'll think of it in a minute. Pender Sweets is here. Thank you for joining us. I saw you a while ago. Let's see what else we got here. Yeah, fear-mongering. Fear-mongering is exactly what these news articles are. I mean, but you know, that's what sells news. You know, in some of the news articles that show up, I'm like, why is this even news? Like sometimes we'll catch an alligator. So for instance, I remember one day I was called to go catch an alligator that was underneath the family's back porch. And they called 911. The sheriff's department came out and said, oh yeah, that's an alligator for sure. We don't do that. And they just left. I'm like, yeah, I know you don't catch them, but couldn't you have just sat in your car and stayed just to make them feel better till I got there, you know? But no, they left. And so I've got this on video somewhere of me catching this gator and trying to use the family's broom to get it out from under their porch. And it's pouring down rain. And Audrey and Lily, my daughters, are there, and they're real young. And I said, here, take my cell phone and film this. And all you hear on the cell phone is just them just screaming bloody murder as the alligator begins to death roll and come out from under the porch. And anyway, we caught that gator. And then the news media showed up with cameras to record it and all this stuff. And I realized I had gotten ready really quick, and I had on 2 different pairs of shoes that day. I'm like, great, I get to be on the news, but at least it's just local news. It's not national news. I'm wearing 2 different shoes. But no, it made national news. All the big news outlets nationwide, and I'm on there with 2 different shoes. So anyway, that was just great. Dennis Atkins, you need some serious border control. Yeah, I guess whoever wrote that article in Columbus, Georgia, they need to get some border control agents down there to keep the gators out. Cheesy, they were blown in from the hurricane. Yeah, I'm sure they were. Man, it's just crazy but I mean, so many people really don't understand that gators naturally live in, you know, Florida, South Carolina, North Carolina, Alabama, Mississippi, Texas, Louisiana. Do they live in Oklahoma? I don't remember. Anyway, they live in a lot more states than you think they do. Several states these alligators live in. Let's see. Squish says, I'm in Central Florida. We have such fear-mongering around our native alligators and crocodiles. Yeah, so if you're in Central Florida, she mentions crocodiles. You're like, well, you got crocodiles in Florida? Yes, there's crocodiles in Florida. And before you go thinking these were released by people in the pet trade, well, some of them were. There are populations of spectacle caiman in Florida, and there's been other crocodilians found that can live there. But in South Florida, down around Miami, there is a natural population of American crocodiles that live there, and it's estimated there's around 10,000 American alligators there, and those are an endangered species. And because they're an endangered species, and because they look like American alligators, they heavily protect American alligators because they look similar. So that way you don't have somebody killing an alligator but it's actually a crocodile. So, I thought it was an alligator, and you can legally kill it, you know? And so anyways, that's why they're protected down there too, even though there's tons of alligators in Florida. I think it says the state of Florida is estimated to have around 1.5 million alligators. Georgia has 250,000. I don't know the numbers for Louisiana. Does Louisiana have more alligators than Florida does? I don't know how do you go out there and count alligators? I guess you do a sample count. I guess count sample areas and then multiply it out and get a estimate that I'm sure is not at all accurate of how many gators are actually there. Yeah, Trinity Murray, got to see some in South Carolina. Yeah, they're definitely in South Carolina for sure, parts of it anyway. As many, so Candy Critters, what are you about to say? See, the danger in reading these articles, these comments live, I don't know what these people are about to say. And once I read it out loud, I mean, it's there and it's in the podcast. So Candy's Critter says, as many humans as many humans as are moving to Florida, if I were a gator, I'd leave too. True. And I hear people I hear Floridians say all the time, the state is full, stop moving down here. Because Florida's a good place to live. And but it's getting busy. Chris Taylor, is that Bigfoot? I don't even know what you're saying, Chris. You talking about my rabbit? That's Audrey's rabbit, okay? It's not Bigfoot. But we do have rabbit feeding here at the moment. Yeah, so Florida's getting crowded. Okay, I'm going to get to this last article now. So Janet Jones says an alligator was found in the White River in downtown Indianapolis. Now, I believe that, but now that one was not one that was naturally there. So there was even a report a year or two ago of one in a river in Pennsylvania. A lot of these states, you can legally buy alligators. So I don't know which all states it is, but I do know for sure in the state of Pennsylvania, you can go into Pennsylvania into a pet store and you can purchase an American alligator. And they get big, regular old alligator. You can buy one as a pet. And I was like, I want to see this. So I had to go do some shows in Pennsylvania. And so I went in there. I just found a pet shop and went in just to see if they had alligators. And sure enough, there was an alligator in there in an aquarium for sale for whoever wanted to buy it, which is insane. I don't think people up north should be buying gators because they can't keep them outside all year long when they get big. So they... they'll keep them in a small enclosure. It stresses them out. They don't feed them as much. So they don't get as big, which greatly shortens their lifespan too. Alligators in captivity should be able to live about 80 years. So, Cheesy Cheetah says, I found an alligator in a tote at the back of a pet store next door to my house at 2 a.m. Someone dumped it at the back door of a pet shop in Wisconsin. Yeah, for sure. Because when they get, when they get big, they're not as cute as remember the hatchlings I had in one of the episodes recently? Those little hatchlings are adorable and they're not as cute to a lot of people when they get bigger. Who else we got here? We got, Anne Marie is saying she don't like that I have the Gaboon Viper out. Be careful, Jason. Cheesy Cheetah says, Gaboon. Yeah, that Gaboon Vipers are so cool. Everybody knows what a Gaboon is. Big caterpillar, that's for sure. They are big, slow slug of a snake. The Gaboon Viper is the only venomous snake I've ever been injured by. No, I didn't get bit by a Gaboon Viper. I was feeding it, okay? And I put a rat in the enclosure with the Gaboon Viper. And, if a rattlesnake goes to eat a rat, now especially if it's a live rat. If we feed frozen, a rattlesnake won't do this. But if we were to feed a live rat to a wild rattlesnake who may not be ready to eat a pre-killed rat, what we'll see is the rattlesnake or the copperhead or the cottonmouth will kind of look at the rat, and as the rat moves, the snake will move and kind of track the rodent around the enclosure and gets close enough to strike. Gaboon vipers don't do that. They're freaky looking. What they'll do is they're just laying there, not moving, and their head's just resting on the ground. And you'll see the rat run by, and he doesn't move except for his eyes. You'll see the Gaboon viper's eyes move all around following this rat, but he's not moving a muscle. And the scary thing is, you think he's waiting for the rat to get right in front of him so he can strike this way. No, the snake will be facing this way, and the rat may be back over here behind him. And the Gaboon does like a backflip accurately at 150 miles an hour and accurately grabs the rat behind its head and then sits there and just kind of holds it up off the ground in his fangs while it dies. It is the freakiest thing. So one time I was watching a Gaboon viper getting ready to eat, and I'm just like intently watching him. The rat's running around, the Gaboon viper is not moving, and I don't want to scare the snake, so I'm sitting here trying to be real still and calm. And I'm not a jumpy person. I guess hard to jump scare me because I'm usually pretty calm. And But I jumped like that, and I jerked my neck when he struck so fast and hard because it scared me, and I pulled a muscle in my neck. So that's the only venomous snake I've ever been injured by. I got a pulled muscle in my neck from a Gaboon viper one time. So yeah, those are really, really pretty snakes. Anne Marie is getting mad in the comments. She does not like me having that thing out. Okay. He's already put up. So this last news article I want to read you guys, this is probably the best. And I'm not even going to read this whole news article. I just want to show you I don't even know where this article is. It's somewhere in this paper. But I just want to show you the headline that they put on here. I wonder I don't even know what they talked about in here. But several years ago, I was asked to assist a nature center with their display of venomous snakes. I'm trying to find the article in this paper. The title of it is on the front page. This is on the front page story, but I don't see where the rest of the article is in here. But anyway, they asked me to assist them with a venomous snake display at their nature center, and I just happen to have a lot of venomous snakes. So we worked out a way for me to do that, and I went down and I actually helped design the enclosures and gave them all the specifications as to how the enclosures for these venomous snakes should be built and how they should be secured. And the locks that were going to go in these enclosures, I provided the locks myself personally. And by doing so, I did not have to worry about anybody else ever having a key to it but me. Now, as this is happening, and I've got my venomous snakes on display down at this nature center, something happens up at Zoo Atlanta. I don't know what happened, but it definitely made national news. And a venomous snake, an exotic venomous snake, one that's not native here to Georgia, escaped from Zoo Atlanta. And it made national news. Everybody around the zoo, because, if you've been to Zoo Atlanta, it's in the middle of a neighborhood. There's tons of houses all around Zoo Atlanta. And they're having to make an announcement that this exotic, here's the article, this exotic venomous snake has escaped. And we don't know if it's in the zoo, so watch where you step, or we don't know if it's left the zoo and is out somewhere, wherever. And so it was a big deal. So anyway, because it made national news and it's an exotic venomous snake, and I've got native venomous snakes as well as exotic venomous snakes on display at this nature center, a reporter came to see me and they asked me a bunch of questions about, man, this is so cool. So tell us about what you do and tell us about this snake and about this snake and about the enclosures and about the facility, just a regular interview, And Trinity Murray says, my hoggies startle me sometimes, but I've never pulled any muscles. Okay. The hognose snakes don't strike as hard as a gaboon. Oh my goodness. If you ever get a chance to watch a gaboon eat, it will jump scare you because they are so quick. Dennis Buckley, I'd love for you to come back to the Dells. Yeah, I'd love to go back up there. It's been probably 2 years ago since I've been to Wisconsin. Okay. Anyway, so he's asking me all just normal questions a reporter would ask, softball questions, they call them. It's going to be a nice article, just telling about what we're doing. But then right before he leaves, he says, I do have one more question for you. So you heard about the snake up at Zoo Atlanta that escaped. And I want to say, I think it may have possibly been a tiger rattlesnake. Rattlesnakes are extremely venomous. The tiger rattlesnakes are extremely venomous. Okay, that's not one you want to get bit by. And it may not have been a tiger rattlesnake. I think it was. And if memory serves correct, I think eventually what happened is it ended up on somebody's front porch who lived near the zoo, and the homeowner, I think, killed the snake. And but did that happen? I don't know. That's the story. I never found out who the homeowner was, but that was the story. Was it a made-up story so they could quell the public's fears? I don't know. If it was a made-up story, maybe they probably should have done it just to quell people's fears, because it's not going to live there long term. Wouldn't be a good thing. So anyway, he says, so the reporter says, okay, so if Zoo Atlanta, I mean, this is Zoo Atlanta, you know, if they can't keep a venomous snake properly contained and it escapes Zoo Atlanta, how are we supposed to be comfortable with whoever you are and your venomous snakes here not getting out? Who's to say that this is not going to happen here? And I said, I mean, that's an easy question to answer. I mean, you know, Zoo Atlanta, I don't know how many employees have access to the back room of the reptile room that then has access to all the backs of these enclosures that most of them are not locked or lock and key, at least before they built the new reptile house when this happened. I said, but it's, I would say it's several people, not 2 or 3, several people have access to those enclosures, and one of them could leave it unlocked, you know? But with me here, I don't have several people who have access to this. There's only one person who has access to these enclosures. There's only one key holder, and that's me. I'm the only person who has a key in any of these enclosures here. So anyway, that was the end of the interview. So he leaves. And this is what showed up the next morning there. If a snake escapes, blame this guy. If a snake escapes, blame this guy. And I mean, what better title can you put than that? That, I was like, you know what? I can't even be mad about that. I could not. That's perfect. If a snake escapes, blame this guy, because he's the only one with a key. It was the perfect title. Anyway, let's get back to the comments one more time before we get ready to get out of here. Let's see here. One bit me unexpected. A hognose snake bit you? That's not a snake you want to get bit by. I've known a couple people get bit by those. As long as they don't chew on you and get their saliva in you that mixes with that toxin, probably won't have much of a problem. So you say, Trinity said it was the most painful paper cut. Yeah, I can imagine that, because hognose snakes do have toxins that kind of get into the wound of a toad to help subdue the toad. So if it gets into you, it's not going to feel good. Squish says, do you have any education geared toward law enforcement? Yes, actually I do. So I have been to several law enforcement agencies around the state and have worked with them as far as venomous snakes go, and teaching them about snakes and handling and so forth. I've also been to the venomous snake handling class in Florida that FWC puts on. They do a great job, and I've helped provide snakes for that class for them before in the state of Florida there. And we're in talks with doing some things for the Georgia Department of Natural Resources as far as an extended, in-depth venomous snake handling class. But I also teach at the academy. So here in Georgia, we have, it's called GIPSTIC, the Georgia Public Safety Training Center in Central Georgia. And it's a huge facility that law enforcement and first responders come to from all over Georgia to train for, law enforcement, firefighting, paramedic, driving simulations, all this kind of stuff. And so if you're going to be a game warden in Georgia, you have to go through the academy. And part of that process of going through the academy is every single year I go there and I put on a class for those cadets. And I've been doing that for many years, and I'm sure I'll be back again this next year to do it again. And so that's always nice and fun to go do for them. Cheesy Cheetah says, I wish I'd find a rattlesnake on my porch. I mean, yeah, I would. That would make my day to walk out and find one on your porch. You wouldn't even have to go in the woods hunting for it. It's just sitting right there. That'd be amazing. I'll have to invite you to watch the Gaboon viper feeding. It is pretty cool. There's probably some feedings of them on YouTube you could find, But anyway, Painted Rocks enjoyed episode number 13. Looking forward to number 14. If I can think of what to talk about for number 14, we'll see. Anyway, thank to everybody who joined us. Now, last thing I want to say, I do have one more thing I want to mention about these news articles that I think is kind of important. You know, I was thinking a lot about this, and remember what I said earlier about how, I had so many haters with comments, and especially when I had my TV show, because that was, nationally. But I realized that, for every hater you have a whole lot of people who like what you're doing. So you can almost gauge your success by how many haters you got, because the haters are usually pretty vocal. And the ones who love you, they might be a little vocal too, but they're not as vocal as the ones who hate you. Hate will really make you want to come out and say some stuff to people. So if you look at how many haters you got, multiply that times 500 or 1,000, give you a clear idea of kind of your fan base out there, which is good. But, there's a lot of stories. I mean, this is just a few newspapers. We got a ton more I've collected over the year. My mom's got a lot more too. There's been a lot of news stories, written about me. And some of it's true, but not all of it's true, for sure. But one thing that I have to remember is to remember who I am and not get my identity from who they say I am or what they say my qualifications are or are not. Don't let other people tell you who you are. You have to make sure, and also you have to make sure you know what's important to you, because if you don't, other people will tell you what's important to you, and they'll decide that for you. But because as you start to grow in popularity in whatever field you're doing, whether you've got a YouTube channel, whether you're doing snake stuff like me, or whatever it is you're doing in life, if you're doing something and it becomes successful and you start having a bigger sphere of influence, your territory starts to get enlarged. More people will start to come into your life. And sometimes what can happen is the wrong people will often talk you out of doing the right thing. For instance, you can bring up the Bible. 1 Corinthians chapter 15, verse 33 says, "Do not be misled. Bad company corrupts good character." So you have to watch who you're hanging around and who you're listening to. Try to make a rule in your life, especially if you get to the point to where you're getting attention for stuff you're doing. Make a rule not to ever accept criticism from people that you would not also go to for advice. Let me say it again. If there's a person that you would not go ask them for advice, don't accept their criticism either. And a lot of times we do that. A person that we don't even really respect their opinion, but if they have something bad to say about us, all of a sudden it affects us. Don't listen to that. Just because someone has a voice doesn't mean they should be heard by you, okay? Not everybody deserves a front row seat to your life. So you don't have to give all your details out to them. Don't worry about these people, because, like I said, as your sphere of influence grows, you're going to have people who come along that dislike you, maybe even hate you, because when you're successful, people will be threatened and they'll almost be like envious of your prosperity. That's going to happen for sure. And the problem is, when people can't see what your destiny is, they can't see where you're going to, that makes them not understand the decisions that you're making now. Because if you've got a destiny that is far above what they can understand, the decisions you make now to get there are not going to make any sense to them. But on the flip side, if you're not a person who's growing in popularity and having your sphere of influence increased, maybe you're listening to people like me who's on YouTube, and you think, well, he's on YouTube, he must know what he's talking about. Sometimes I do. I'm sure I say a lot of things I don't know what I'm talking about, but and I'm not talking about me particular. I'm not saying that I'm famous, but there are a lot of famous people who want to give their opinion on stuff. And you have to remember, fame does not equal intelligence. Just because somebody's famous doesn't mean they're smart. Okay? There's a lot of people who ain't smart that's also famous. So fame does not equate to a person's intelligence. Taking advice from somebody just because you're famous is stupid. Don't do that. Psalm 49 says something, the people that have wealth, basically despite their wealth, they're just going to perish anyway. And this becomes the fate of those who trust in themselves, as well as the followers of this person who approve of their sayings. So it just goes to show, just because a person's famous doesn't mean this is somebody that you should necessarily listen to, okay? Including me. When you become successful enough, certain people will start to celebrate you. Until your peers around you, they will celebrate you until your success surpasses what they think of you. Then they'll attack you. So you got to be careful who you surround yourself with. Because your destiny and what you're heading for is so much more important than what these people think about you. So like I said, remember who you are. Nobody tells you who you are. You know who you are. Don't get your identity from other people. Find out what's important to you. If you don't find out what's important to you, other people will tell you what's important to you. And also remember, the wrong people will talk you out of the right things. You know the right thing to do. And the wrong people around you will talk you out of that. So don't do that. So guys, thank y'all for joining me for episode number 13. And God willing, if the Lord's willing, the creek don't rise. And then when they say, I will be back for episode number 14 on the Snakes Are Us TV podcast. And remember one last thing. I have to tell you this one last thing. Jesus loves you. And so do I. You guys please do me a favor and have a wonderful night.